for this week's challenge, we got a lot of fun playing with spatial data. So our input data has the latitude and longitude of many different points. So after we've done the create points, which kind of automatically just detects the right fields, let me just show you what those points are looking like. So we've got these boys all lined up here, and I believe that this one here is our origin, so our starting place, and then one of these down here is our ending place, our destination. And you've got a couple of other markers here which are called Kilroot and Helen's Bay, which we'll need to filter out at some point because they're not actually useful for us. So all of the boys haven't really got a name, they've just got the letter F and they're numbered 1 to 16. So, but we can tell from just sort of investigating the data that F1 and F2 are sort of the ones that are left and right, and F3 and F4, so they're kind of matched up in their order. That's how their numbering convention is working. So first of all, if we kind of just filter all the boys to be in one output for now, so that's all the point names that contain the letter F. And what we're going to do is we're going to just classify them if they're even or odd, and just sort of get their sequence number out of them. So our sequence is literally just taking away the point name and turning it into a number. Sorry, taking away the F is what I meant to say from the point name, so that we're left with just the numeric value. And then the even and odd is just using the modulo function, modulo 2 on the sequence field, and we can see that we get a 1 or a 0. So the 1 means it's odd, basically, and the 0 means it's even. So that's lovely. That means that we can go ahead and create our polylines for each of those. And the way that we're configuring that tool is we're just saying sequence polyline from the dropdown. On the centroid, our grouping field is the even or odd, because that's telling us basically if it's left or right. And our sequence field is our sequence field, funnily enough. So that's kind of step 1 done. Now, how do we calculate those midpoints between those boys? So first of all, we're going to use a running total, which is a neat little trick to just get those. Because we've got every pair starts with the odd number, then we can use the running total tool to just kind of group those pairs together. So you can see that by doing a running total here, then these two get grouped together as 1, these two get grouped together as 2, all the way down. So that's a nice little trick for you. And then, so to find those midpoints, we just need to group by that running total we just created. We'll rename that field to be the sequence. And then from the centroid film, we're just going to be creating a centroid. So on the centroid, then in the spatial functions, we're just using the create centroid. And that kind of just finds the midpoint for us. There's nothing more complex to do than that, which is great. So we've got that sequence that's in between the boys. We now need the origin and the destination. So from back here where we filtered out those that didn't have F in the point name, we're just going to filter out where they equal origin or destination to get those 2 points. And we're going to, for our sequence, have it, if it's the origin, have a 0, otherwise have a 9, so that it goes at the start and the end respectively. And we'll just union that into our data set. And we'll use another polyline to build that line that goes from the origin to the destination through the midpoint of the boys. And I guess I could use a browse tool here to show you. So whilst I'm running that, we're also, as well as building the map for this challenge, we want to know, so there's the line, we also want to know the length of this route. So we just use a spatial info tool, which is in the spatial section, this one here, and we get the length in miles and just rename that to be the route distance dash miles for building the table. So if you see the table here, all we had to do was not touch anything really, just center align this field. We have to actually be clicked on the field, and for the alignment, click center. And we had a couple of font size increases for the data and for the header respectively, so that it is just nice and big for us to see in our report. And then we'll come to the building of the map. So I personally chose to build this up one layer at a time. You're kind of seeing them all coming in as all the layers, but I started with the lines for the boys, and built it up from there, which I recommend you do, because bringing them all in at once to me just feels a bit overwhelming. So The first thing I did actually, well, not the first thing, but one of the things that was annoying me was that this scale was overlapping some of the marks. So I just increased the percentage that it increases the map area by to 20% from 10%, and that kind of stops that legend, that scale overlapping the points. Whilst I accidentally said the word legend, I also made sure that I turned off the legend because that's not included, and it would also get quite messy with all of the different data inputs that we have. So I was quite glad that we didn't have to play with that for this challenge. So the first thing that I brought in, as I was mentioning, was the lines for the boys, so those 2 lines. And for that, we want to have a thematic field, which is the even odd field. So that's basically whether it's the top line or the bottom line, just so that we can have those different colors applied to it. That's kind of the theme. So we go to add in our lines layer, and we add it from number 1, and that's this one here. That's what that appears as. So you notice that the style at the top here is grey, but it's actually in the theme that we set those different colors up. Now, I'm no expert with the report map, so please excuse me if you know better. Please tell me if you know better. But I decided to say equal records because I know I want 1 for each tile. And then I knew that it was that tealy colour and the red colour were the 2 that I was looking for. And yeah, I just played around to see which one would do what I wanted for the output. So that's how we get those 2 lines, the red line and the teal line. Next up, I brought in the points. So that's coming from here. So all of those points for the even and odd boys. So brought that in as a separate input. And that's number 2. So it came along to the layers tab again. Well, actually in the data tab in number 2, we also have that even and odd on the thematic field for colouring in whether it's the left boy or the right boy. And in the layers, we add in a points layer, number 2, and that's this one here. So you can see it's a blue diamond here, but in the output, if I show you the output, it actually comes through as the same color, and that is because in the report map layers, we have in our thematic field, again, that sort of setup where it's teal and red, so that it actually colors it nicer. We changed the size, we reduced it down to number 5. That was just trial and error as what looked like it matched the desired output. And then the next thing that I brought in was the line between the boys, I believe. Yes, the line between the boys. So that's number 3, if you can see that here. Nothing on the thematic field this time. And if we just increase that, we just chose to change the color to blue. Oh, and we've reduced the size of the lines down to 4 in each, down to 1 for each of the instances. The default is 4, but they were quite thick lines for that. Whereas this is quite a zoomed in data set, so we probably want quite thin lines there. So that's the simplicity of just doing that line from our origin to our destination. Then for the origin and destination is the next input. So rather than inputting everything once I've unioned it with the boys, I thought it'd just be easier to take 2 separate inputs, because obviously we have the pushpin points for the origin, the destination, whereas we have circles for each of the midpoints of the boys. So number 4 is this pushpin. The way that we get it to be a pushpin is we just change it, our point star to be pushpin, our size to be 15 to make it a little bit bigger, more noticeable, change the color to red, easy peasy. And then finally the midpoint of the boys is number 5 input, and we just are changing those to be circles and reducing down the size, so that then we get our map all nice and formatted and the way that is in the output. So all that's left to do is to union together our map and our table, and to use a vertical layout container, literally just changing that to all records combined and this to be vertical, and then we get the output that matches what we were asked to deliver. So I hope that was useful, easy to follow, and thank you for watching.